They say that you shouldn't look at what it took to get where you are. You should look at what you gave up to get to where you are as a measure of the cost of as the cost of your reaching where you are. And as of today, I have lost many friends over this one bad word. And my life experience is this way. I can't, for example, walk into a university and expect to keep a job and have the staff scrambling to create a job for me, but a white person could. And I have a friend who has. Well, maybe I lost her too. Who knows? Um, Racism is the word. So I'll talk about that. George J. Chanos is one of the wisest people in the century. And it's not just it's because he's written a book like this. And there's a lot in it. Okay. Anyway, A Mindset for the 21st Century, Book 1, Millennial Samurai. We're on page 279. Racism has existed for thousands of years, and despite the best efforts of many, it continues to be an intensely emotional and polarizing issue for millions of Americans. Racism is real. It is a dehumanizing act and experience. In other words, don't tell me about how a white person experienced such and such a thing and then have the entire conversation revolve around that experience about that white person. We live it minute per minute, 24/7, year by year. I am not the darkest looking person in the room, so I don't get the brunt of it. But the darker you are, the more it happens to you. Imagine, for example, putting on what they used to call blackface. Let's pretend you could really do it now. Like, let's say you have high tech and you can make yourself look brown for a day. Try going around and looking like that. And can you imagine how you'd be treated? Well, if you can imagine how you'd be treated, then you already know that racism is real. You already know that racism is real. Okay. It is a dehumanizing act and experience, says the author. It is offensive not only to its intended and unintended targets, but to all those whose sense of decency and morality abhors injustice. The idea that one man would judge another man inferior simply by virtue of the color of his skin is beyond ignorant. It is a cruel and intolerable assault on human dignity that no man or woman should be expected to endure. America has responded to racism with a variety of measures, including but not limited to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution, the 1954 United States Supreme Court decision of Brown v. Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and numerous state and federal rules and regulations designed to correct past wrongs. While helpful and well intentioned, these legal responses have not eliminated and cannot eliminate racism in America. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second here, and I'm going to mention that yesterday we had our election day, midterm. We call them midterm elections because of the year. Uh, the year is right between presidential election years in the United States. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. The author resumes. While helpful and well intentioned, these legal responses have not eliminated and cannot eliminate racism in America. No legislation can. Racism is an attitude grounded in bias and perception. In many cases, these biases and perceptions have been handed down within families generation after generation. Ending racism will require more than changes in law and social policy. It will require a fundamental shift in our individual biases and perceptions. This is why I do this show. Unfortunately, biases and perceptions often prove resistant to change. Despite the best efforts of many, racism continues to undermine our national ethos and inflicts pain and suffering on continues to inflict pain and suffering on millions of Americans. These are complex, emotionally charged issues that have existed for generations. Only the continuing efforts and commitment of this and future generations can resolve these issues, and this will take time. America has made great strides in this area, but much more needs to be done. Many young African American men and women are out of work. Although unemployment among Black teens has fallen from a high of 49% in 2010 to a 50-year low of 19.3% in 2019, the rate of unemployment for young African Americans is still substantially higher than the rate of unemployment for white teens, which in 2019 stands at 12.8%. For many young men and women of color, attending college is not an option. Many of these young people have very few options. Some who lack employment opportunities may loiter and engage in mischief, as young people of all races and backgrounds are inclined to do. In either cases, in other cases, I'm sorry, In other cases, young men and women of color who are generally law abiding citizens may come into contact with police for minor traffic violations such as speeding or expired license plates. Some young people who are unable to find work and are lured by the lucrative underground economy may turn to selling drugs or prostitution. Some get involved in more serious crimes. 1 in 4 Black males will go through the corrections system in his lifetime. Arrests this is a horrible situation. Arrests and incarceration have a devastating effect on the lives of those involved, often leading to unemployment or increased criminality. This, in turn, perpetuates the stereotypes and public perceptions that fuel racism when the true causes of increased crime in America's inner cities have nothing to do with race and instead result from a lack of economic opportunity, a lack of education, and a lack of family or community support. In the final analysis, racism is nothing more than a lie. It is a lie that some people cling to out of their own insecurity and impaired self image. Much like drowning victims will pull down those around them to save themselves, racists attempt to reduce the stature of those whose skin color is different from their own in a misguided attempt to somehow elevate their own stature by comparison. Racists are fundamentally insecure. They have a low self image and they overcompensate for their insecurity by attempting to diminish others. Those whose victim mentality causes them to see racism around every corner are equally insecure. Today, the term, oh goodness gracious, SYBAU. Hey Siri, what does SYBAU mean? I don't know. The Would you mind spelling that out? At Edward Signs Sigma Who? What? WLO. Anyway, today, the term racism has become completely untethered from its historical roots. Instead of being used to describe someone who believes in racial inferiority or superiority, the term racist is now being used by those on both sides of the political spectrum as a political weapon. This deliberate and irresponsible misuse of the term is not contributing to the end of racism. To an end of racism. It is fueling and increasing our division, and it should not be encouraged or tolerated. Truth is the only means capable of ending racism, and truth requires honesty and objectivity. All people need to be treated equally, fairly, and objectively, regardless of race, color, creed, or national origin. To think highly of others, you must first think highly of yourself. Look at that. Look at that. Love thyself, right? Know thyself, right? You have to know yourself. K-N-O-W. Know yourself. K-N-O-W. Okay, so next time we will read about incarceration, which is another hot topic. It's a hot potato type of topic, you know? Really sad. Really, really sad. So this one will be for, what's today? What's 1965 plus 7? 1972. Okay, there we go. All right, so tonight I have met you guys a few times for my shows, and I hope that you have a great evening. Um, I wish I could find out what that meant. Do you mind if I find out what that means? Well, I'll go find out later. Okay, I'll talk to you later. I always mention Old Kinderhook. Kinderhook was a place in New York, and James Monroe, our eighth president, was from there and was called Old Kinderhook. And Old Kinderhook was known to be somebody who wanted to see things to their very good end, to complete good things to their very end properly. So to create a proper ending, I would always say okay, which is where we get okay. Old Kinderhook means okay. You remember? Well, okay means Old Kinderhook. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Old Kinderhook.